You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Kyle Federline.
Yes, that is me. Thank you so much for having me on, Robbie.
So, Kyle, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
Okay, so I am a almost 30-year-old dude that lives in West Virginia. Grew up in Maryland, in Annapolis area for the first part of my life, and lived in West Virginia for the majority of my life. Professionally, by day, I work at a hospital in surgery as a tech. And by night, I am I'm a father, a gamer, and I co-host and host a podcast, 2 different podcasts.
So, when you say you work in surgery as a tech, so what types of stuff do you do in that field?
Oh, man. All right. So we are the people that get the rooms set up for the surgeon. We get the instruments set up for the surgeon. And then during the procedure, if we're not getting him the instruments or the equipment that he needs, we are assisting him with the surgery.
Wait a minute. So, you're the guy that when someone goes scalpel, you give them the scalpel?
Yeah. I guess the cool thing is I'm currently working with our open heart team at the hospital. So the majority of surgeries that I do throughout the week are open hearts.
Whoa. So, you get
Yeah.
that. First of all, you have to have a stomach to do something like that.
Yes. I've never really had a problem with blood and guts and stuff like that. That stuff's never really fazed me. But to me, it's fascinating to see this patient roll in the room sick, and then the surgeon just go to work and correct the things that are wrong with the patient and essentially fix them and then send them off feeling better in the long run.
There's a big reliability on you too. Like just because the surgeon's doing all the work, you're actually playing a big part by handing him tools and also setting up the room so he can actually perform the surgery.
Yes, and I guess going into the schooling for it, I didn't realize how much uh, responsibility as far as not contaminating stuff or breaking sterility falls on us. And that goes on throughout the entire case because there's a sterile field set up that we have to stay within and all of our instruments have to stay within. And if something small in the field gets contaminated and touches something else in the field, then basically the whole field has been contaminated with some kind of uh, we'll just say germ.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know, the crazy thing is when you look at where all that came from originally around the Victorian era was
Mhm.
when sanitation in hospitals became a big thing. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know some of the medical innovators. There's Joseph Lister and Robert Liston. Those
Mhm.
guys, like Lister was actually they named Listerine after him.
Okay.
They didn't have the proper way, I guess, understanding of sanitation, mostly when it came to just cleaning off their tools.
Mhm.
But they had a very, very, very more realistic grasp on how you should treat your tools because you can't, like, everybody's kind of just doing a surgery, then going into another one without washing off their tools. So what
Oh.
Joseph Lister used to do is he used to actually run it underwater. But the
Mhm.
problem was that might have been innovative for back then, but he never did it with hot water. He only did it with cold water. So it
Yeah.
never truly neutralized all the germs. A lot of the reason why people say doctors don't make house calls. Back in the day, they actually used to make house calls all the time because it was actually safer to be at your house when you were sick. Because if you went to a hospital, you were more likely going to die because the sanitation in there, they did not understand how to neutralize it.
Right. Well, and you think like, where do all the sick people go? They go to the hospital. So there is a higher chance of you acquiring a hospital infection from you get some kind of other disease from some other hospital, like tuberculosis or something, is not super common, but yet if you don't have the proper precautions or people aren't being responsible, I mean, you could potentially have an outbreak in the hospital and people have to get tested and everything. And it's I don't know. To me, if I were sick, I'd rather be home and have someone come to me personally. Although that would be so much more expensive nowadays.
Bring you a nice bowl of chicken noodle soup or
Yeah,
something. These make
yeah,
you feel better. I think the
totally.
craziest thing is that you can see all these people that are like narcoleptic that like start to think they are they hypochondriacs or narcoleptic when they start believing they have a bunch of symptoms.
Hypochondriac.
Okay, a hypochondriac. So
Yeah.
I know a couple people that are like that. Literally, if they're not, if like if you know, I'm at fault for doing it too. Next
Hmm.
thing you know, you're having like a stomach ache. You go immediately on to what does this mean? And next thing you know, you're
No,
looking up at
bad
a
news.
WebMD article telling you
Yeah.
you have stomach cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever it's just probably ate some bad chicken or something.
I think it's crazy because when you look at like I got fascinated when I started finding out so much innovation that came in the Victorian era. Did you
Mhm.
know with the white wigs and all those types of things that you know how it's seen as royalty? Do you actually know where it came from?
No, you mean like what the judges and kings and all them wore?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay.
Well, do you actually know where those came from?
No,
So what happens? Royalty used to wear that because they had syphilis.
huh.
So if you know anything about syphilis, they cause these abrasions and lesions on top of your head that
Mhm.
cause your scalp basically you start to kind of rot. Your body kind of turns into a zombie, and most of the time your nose falls off. So a really good book that I actually ended up reading was The Art of Butchery by Dr. Lindsay Fitzharris. She was on a Joe Rogan's podcast. It's kind of
Mhm.
where I got the inspiration for it. But she writes about these innovators in this art of basically butchery, which is known as classic day surgery. Because
Mhm.
back in the day, they didn't have anesthetics or all those types of things to
Right.
knock you out. All they had was their quickness. So when you got a surgeon, you wanted him to be as fast as possible. Like chop that fucking foot off, please.
Yeah.
You know, hearing that and then hearing the strides we've made nowadays. Like, did you know they're using VR goggles to actually simulate surgery, like surgeries, and have different like things kind of happen? So you have to kind of problem solve quicker.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, a couple of our doctors use robotic surgery, and so they sit in this console, and we dock a robot that's like it's pretty big over top of the patient, and they're sitting from their console with a ring that sits on your thumb and on your pointer finger, and they're kind of hooked up to joysticks, and they're manipulating the instruments on the robot by looking through like you said VR. It is a 3D image of what they're looking at inside the patient's body, and they're operating on that patient.
Like how difficult I know they do sometimes where they have bring in the patient's family or they bring in like new doctors that are trying to learn about it and they bring in to observe. How
Mhm.
difficult is that for you to be able to perform your job being watched on?
So we don't generally have like patients' families to walk or to watch us. We do have students that come in to watch, and we do have like residents and some medical students that have come back to the heart rooms and watch the doctors do their surgery. For me personally, it's I don't really pay attention to them unless they start getting sick. Then somewhere down inside, I kind of find it funny. I don't know.
You're sitting
It's
there laughing and the guy's asking you to hand you something.
Yeah, and they're like getting all pale faced, and then they have to walk out and pass out in the hallway or something. But it normally you don't even pay attention to that unless they're talking, then you engage. But after I'd say like the first couple months of being back there and being trained back there, you're so focused on learning. And then once you've gotten past that learning point, then it's just kind of second nature to you. And I don't know, just the pressure of someone else watching has never really gotten to me, and it hasn't really gotten to the surgeon from what I could understand or see.
I think it's kind of crazy when you look at like the nursing program and a lot that goes into a hospital. Like there's so many things that can go wrong, and there's so many things that you kind of have to worry about when you're
Hmm.
dealing with working on a patient. Like you got to know their background information. You got
Right.
to make sure they're not allergic to anything. You got to make sure you're supplying the right amount of, anesthetics, all these
Right.
types of things that you have to apply to them to make sure they're not really feeling any pain. That
Hmm.
kind of brings me to the question, like, what are some of the biggest problems you face doing your job?
Um, it's a good question. I think for us, we hit a period earlier this year where the doctors were wanting to work so much, um, which I love my job, but when it comes to them having staff work, you know past their required hours. They're staying on call to do elective surgeries, and it's taking you away from your family and your hobbies and just downtime for yourself. Like, I feel like that is the biggest drag to what we do. It's being able to separate yourself from the hospital to focus on yourself as an individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you have has this like a field that you feel comfortable staying in, or do you wanted to aspire to something different? Like, I can't imagine you being a kid wondering like what it would be like to be like a surgery technician.
No, well, yes. Yeah, I could do this for the rest of my life. I love it. And as much work as we do throughout the week, I mean, to be honest, I'd rather be creating some kind of content or podcast or something and making money, but if we're being honest about that, to really pull in money for making podcasts, like you've got to drop everything and just devote yourself 100%. And having a family, it makes it really difficult to do that. So I could see myself possibly going back to school for nursing, if not continuing to advance with our heart team and really just trying to do my best there. And I don't know, just kind of going up the ladder
I
as a
think
tech.
like a lot of stuff that kind of deals with the medical field a little bit. I've had friends that are like EMT nurses and things of
Hmm.
this sort, and they talk about how like in 2019 there's going well not in 2019 but like towards like coming out of 2019 into 2020 there's going to be like the most recorded number of nurses that are going to be retired just because of the older generation. There's
Hmm.
actually been like a really hit on the medical industry when it comes to the amount of patients they have to care for. And this brings in a real big problem because a doctor is only supposed to have 6 or 7 patients, and they're supposed to understand like and get to know their patients as well. That's one of the main things in treating them because you need to know their history, you need to get to know the person.
Right.
Now it's led up to the nurse's job. The nurse sits there and gives you those awkward questions. When's the last time you had
Yeah.
any type of medication? When's the last time you went drinking? When's the last time you smoked? And they keep on giving this list because they literally give this doctor information. And my buddy was talking about like the reason like nowadays hospitals are unequipped to deal with everything because now you're seeing so many people get hurt,
Hmm.
and it's at the aspect of either people are living dangerous lives or an accident does happen, but they don't have enough doctors to supply the patients. They have, instead of having 6 or 7 patients, they have 9 or 10 patients, and even then they're not even getting to know their patient. They're just walking in, reading a chart, and then throwing a
Right.
prescription your way because that's what it's basically the standard is now. For them to get off their shift, they have to make sure everyone is not in critical condition. That means that they're just okay, so you can leave,
Yeah.
and that promotes a little bit of just hitting the requirement, not going above and beyond to help somebody. I mean, like, have you ever seen the show Scrubs?
No, I mean, I know it, and I probably watched an episode here and there, but I've never sat and watched it all the way through.
It shows like the weirdest part of where hospitals have taken a turn from like the 90s where
Hmm.
like if you had a patient that was going through cancer and you get to see that, you get to understand who they are and get to kind of connect with them in a way to the point where like if they end up losing their hair, you might end up actually shaving your head to kind of give them more
Sympathize with them.
confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen nowadays
Hmm.
because the doctors don't feel the need to sympathize, only on the fact that it's just they're just another patient. They're just another chart.
It's almost like like you could kind of see the medical industry becoming a fast food industry. It's just on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And unfortunately, in our area, we've dealt with the opioid crisis, and a lot of people like their fast food in this area. So we have a lot. The obesity is pretty high over here. So when it comes to their heart, being heart healthy, uh, a lot of patients just don't take care of themselves. We get people in their 20s that are having open heart surgery here.
Why do you think that is? Is that because like maybe energy drinks, or do you think that's on the concept of bad nutrition?
Drugs.
Drugs, really?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big thing down here too. We have an opioid addiction. A lot of
Yep.
kids are now experiencing like bad drugs.
Yeah. So we got a lot of heroin users here, um, that unfortunately, they get addicted to it, and it just corrodes the heart, man. It damages it, and then Eventually, you're in your late 20s and you have a doctor that's cutting open your chest.
Yeah, you think when you hear open heart surgery, you think of something like, uh, I don't know, like older age people. Like
Mm.
my grandfather had open heart surgery. Like for me, my biggest fear is having surgery. If it came to the point where I needed surgery, I probably would just die. Only on the concept of I know so much shit can go wrong,
Yeah.
like somebody accidentally leaving a tool inside of somebody,
Yeah.
or like, and everyone thinks, oh, that's just a rare occurrence. I'm like, but mistakes happen.
They do.
The
Yeah.
dude's thinking about what he's going to be eating for dinner that night, and then next thing you know, I get a scalpel stuck in my ass. Like I
Yeah.
have no clue.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You've got imperfect people within this industry, and eventually there is a mistake that's going to happen. I mean, that's beyond our control as humans. It's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, I think like when people chalk up things like the medical industry being wrong or being a little bit corrupt, I'm like, it's not the medical industry. It's kind of the business of people in
Right.
general. It seems like now the medical industry, what it used to be, is not how it is anymore. When it seems like a doctor's more willing to put a prescription into your face.
Yeah.
I do think that's kind of a big problem when it comes to, we need to look more about on the basis of nutrition, especially when it comes to our education system.
Mm.
I feel like it seems like as soon as a teacher goes, oh, the kid has ADHD, he needs to be medicated. I find it to be better use if we can find a way maybe to cut down something in their nutrition, like
Right.
not give them a chocolate milk at lunch, maybe give them something like a water, give them like something with no sugar in it,
I
just
mean,
so they don't spike.
that's your first line of defense. Why jump straight into medication or something? Why not figure out if there's something you can change, whether it's his routine, whether it's his diet or something? Why not figure that out before jumping straight into medication like for instance for ADHD or something similar to that?
Yeah, and then like a lot like when it comes to like writing off a prescription, like a lot of that comes back to big pharma. Like you heard Johnson and Johnson, that company that was
Yeah.
actually that just came out like these people that are supposed to be making no cry baby shampoo
Yeah.
are like the biggest drug leaders. Like they look like El Chapo, but
Yeah.
you look at El Chapo because he's selling cocaine when these people are literally giving you legal meth.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to pharmacologists that have a complaint with this too. The whole aspect of they're giving a prescription to someone that probably does not need that prescription.
Yeah.
We're living in a heavily medicated society, and I don't even think that stems just from actual like just pills or something. I think it also stems down to fast food. I mean, how many times, like you being a parent, how many times you go to McDonald's, you get something, and you give your kid maybe a Happy Meal. Next thing you know, that kid's conked out in the back.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a sugar rush for their body to the point where it shuts down. And as adults, we just became so used to it. We
Yeah.
just like, it doesn't affect us.
I'm a firm believer that McDonald's Coke has crack in it still.
Those
I mean, that
burgers,
stuff is so good.
they literally could paint a log of shit and you probably would. It tastes the exact same. Dude, I'm telling you, they have things about like cloning meat and like cloning
Yeah.
animals and using that. I'm like, it makes sense because how many times do you eat an actual burger from McDonald's and you actually sit there and enjoy the burger?
It's never. I mean, to be honest, never. It's just something to put in your stomach.
Yeah, you're literally like just like honestly, it'd probably be better to eat a Haitian mud cookie. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's 90% dirt, 5% butter, and 5% salt. They eat that.
Oh.
They eat that down there in Africa because that literally keeps them from the point of starvation. I'm like, that's us eating fast food.
I mean, it is.
We just drive and we just shovel it in our face like, oh, this is going to keep me from being hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I've always thought about like, so you think about surgery now and you think about surgery, 50 years ago. I mean, are we going to look back 50 years from now and think, what in the world were we doing? The last lobotomy was done late 70s, early 80s, I think.
Man, I'm telling you, when it comes to the medical industry, there's so many crazy things that you start learning about if you go back to the old past, like how we used to handle like mental health in a way. We used to just throw people in a room in a straitjacket and hope they figured it out. Like
that's the reasonable thing to do to someone.
If you're doing that to me, I'm going to be bouncing around in that room like crazy. Like I'm going to make myself seem even more nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, as a parent, I've experienced my child going through teething and her teeth cutting through her gums. And back in the olden days, they used to lance children's gums open to try and help advance her teeth to come through quicker.
Oh my God.
Like that's like torture.
Dude, I'm telling you, and you know tendonitis?
Mm-hmm.
You know what happens in the last stages of tendonitis?
Mm-mm.
You go and literally severe like seizure to the point where you snap your own spine.
Oh, oh.
That's why people always like they always had like a twisted back and everything
Mhm.
on their corpse, and it was like they would literally your body would go in such a huge seizure that you would bend back so far you would crack your own back in half.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah, that's brutal.
"Ooh."
Yeah.
Oh, like this, like I started learning about this stuff. There's a guy named Robert Lister, not Robert Lister, Robert Liston. He was known as the fastest knife in the West End. And you know
Mhm.
why they called him that?
No. Why?
Because back in the day, you had to be fast to be a surgeon. You
Mhm.
know, he literally was
Well,
like, he was like, chop your foot off, and that was it. Like, or do it in a minute. I'm holding you down. We're chopping it straight off.
just get it done.
And the crazy thing about him was he was the only surgeon with a 300% mortality rating. Let me say it again. 300%. You're like, how the hell did he kill? How did he get?
That many, yeah.
He killed 3 people in one surgery.
Yeah, that's wow.
One of the perks of him being the fastest knife in the West End, he would grab these tools and he would like, as he was cutting, he'd be placing them in his mouth and like going really, really fast. Well, what happened was he chopped this woman's foot off. And basically, whenever you're getting a surgery, like we got to chop this off. Back
Mhm.
then, it was basically a death sentence. It was like, yeah, you're going to get contaminated. You're going to die of infection.
Something's yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was he actually cut his assistant's fingers off while he chopped the girl's foot off. And then he was moving so quick, he threw a blade behind him to another assistant and sliced the person's coat. And the person was of elderly age and had a heart attack.
Oh my
So he
goodness.
killed 3. You heard about a double kill.
That's a hat
This guy
trick.
went for a trick. This guy went
Yeah.
for a triple.
Wow.
You hear like I was reading this book and you're hearing the stories about these like amazing surgeons. Dude, Robert Liston was 6'4", which is pretty big for back then.
Mhm.
And he talked about like he would tell people, I'm coming to your house on this day and we're going to do the surgery on this day. And people would not open up the door because like that's like warning somebody of impending doom.
Yeah.
So there's an account from a victim, or I guess a patient. He kicked down the dude's door. The dude ran into his closet. The guy ripped the door off the hinges and threw him onto his kitchen table and chopped something off.
Oh my goodness.
Like he was like, I'm getting it
That's
done.
like that's like serial killer status almost.
And I find it funny because I know what the old, like, one of my favorite games, Assassin's Creed.
Mhm.
So, the medical doctor,
Yes.
that mask.
Yes. It was like with the big beak on it.
Yeah, the doctor's mask. Well,
Yeah.
it has a name with it. I think it starts with a V. It's not
It's on the tip of my tongue, and I'm gonna think about it. But go ahead, keep going.
but it's like why they had that was because the Black Plague that was coming out, the bubonic plague, all these types of things that was like kind of basically wiping out most of the population. They were wearing that like it was badass. And you look at your doctor like he was a grim reaper, like he was coming to kill you.
It's the plague doctor.
Yeah, the plague doctor.
Okay.
And he had a thing, like what they used to stick inside the beak of the mask? They used to stick in smelling salts to actually keep the rotting smell of flesh from actually contaminating their own noses.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading about this history all from a video game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean that whole series is, it is basically one giant history book.
Yeah, it helped me dive more into Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
Like I started thinking like, oh my God, Leonardo da Vinci worked with assassins. This is what it was. And I actually started reading more history books upon it. And it kind of veers me off into, what you do as, you do a podcast, you do too, but you got this one called Parent Quest.
Yes.
And so let everybody know a little bit about what Parent Quest is.
So it is a podcast that I do by myself, but I have guests on. Mostly parents. I have had 1 or 2 people on that aren't parents, but it's basically talking about raising kids in a time where it is
Hard to be a kid.
Well, yeah, hard to be a kid, but it is cool to be a nerd.
Well, I think what do we mean by nerd? Because I think there's a difference between a nerd and a geek.
So, okay, well, let's talk about that here in a second. So, growing up in the '90s, being a nerd, what did you think of?
Being a nerd was like, I guess you wore black rimmed glasses. You
Hmm.
had a pocket protector with a bunch of different pens that I never saw anybody
Hmm.
use. And basically playing video games all the time to the point. Well, I mean, I play video games all the time, but I wouldn't have considered myself a nerd. I still
Yeah,
dress like a skater.
yeah. Steve Urkel or like Screech, or like, I mean, I feel like those are your iconic nerds of the '90s,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and now I feel like we're in a time where, I mean, people are interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons now.
Not even that. I did actually posting up an episode about this guy that does a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the games that you would consider nerdy that I used to play all the time, Oblivion, Skyrim, all the
right.
amazing games that were taken in the medieval times. I mean, I'm a giant fan of the Assassin's Creed series on the basis that it gives you an alternate look at history. I learned about Aristotle from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I learned
Right.
about that all of our plays that we have when it comes to the acts of theater, comedy, drama, all these things came from Aristotle, one of these great philosophers.
Hmm. And so that, I mean, that's kind of what the podcast itself is about. So my daughter is almost 3, and it is kind of my experience with her, like my interaction with her playing Mario. She plays Mario Odyssey, and then while it's my interactions with her, it's also um, talking with guests about their careers and their hobbies. So I've had um, uh, one of my recent guests was Phil Moore from Nickelodeon Arcade. He used to host Nick Arcade. I don't know if you watch that.
I did
Uh, and
religiously.
yeah, yeah, I did too. And so we talked about, his career being in the TV industry, and his son's career being in YouTube and stuff, and how his son was always around him when he was doing Nick Arcade and working on these other projects in Hollywood, and kind of how his son is doing his own thing now with YouTube. And I've had Sean Beeson, who's a music composer. He's got 5 kids, and we talk about which kids of his, have that listening ear for your music, and which ones could care less about what he does. So it's a real open discussion about growing up with your kids, and whether they like what you do or whether they kind of picked up their own thing, and if you have interest in what they're doing.
Sadly, it is. It's harder because like when I was a kid, it was hard for my parents to sit down and play video games with me. Like it was
Hmm.
never like a big thing. But I come from a music family. Everybody's in a band. Everybody does broadcasting and stuff. So
Yep.
the one game we all used to play together, Guitar Hero or Rock Band.
Oh yeah, man.
I'm telling you, those moments, like it's summertime, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like 15 years old and I'm playing School's Out for Summer by Alice
Yep.
Cooper. And next thing you know, my dad's like, yo, hook up a guitar, hook up some drums, let's do
Yeah.
this. When that happens, it's like, whoa, like you play this, you just got off of a gig, like an actual gig in front of fans. Now you want to play this? He goes, yeah, I'm always down to play Rock Band. Like, and then don't even forget about when the Wii came out. The Wii, man, that
Yeah.
changed some family moments for real. That was
Yeah.
real connectivity. Anybody want to go bowling? Let's load it
Yeah.
up.
Let's box it out.
Yeah, next thing you know, you forgot to tie the wrist Wii strap to your wrist, and your freaking remote goes right through the TV.
Yep. Yep. And so, I mean, to you, that's probably memories that you're gonna hold on to forever. Obviously, you acknowledge the fact that your parents were there, they provided for you, they sent you to school, they made you food, they worked and stuff. But when it comes down to years down the road, you're gonna sit there and think, man, my dad hooked up with me, and we played Guitar Hero, and we just jammed out together. Like, and to me, that's stuff that I cherish. Like, my grandmother took me to see episode 1 in theater. She introduced me Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon together. Like, she was all into this super cool stuff. She's gone now, but the more and more that I go on, like, thinking, like, she was probably one of the bigger nerds in my family that I took for granted.
I think it's hard for a parent to show their inner nerd when it comes to the pressures of working. Like
Hmm.
most parents now working two jobs. Like both my parents worked two jobs, and it felt like I became super connected to my Xbox, especially as
Right.
a kid dealing with just the anxiety from high school and stuff. And I ended up just being upstairs 24/7 playing Xbox. Not really going out and doing anything. And obviously, there's a good way to play video games and a bad way to play video games.
Hmm.
Video games nowadays and video games back then were an escape from reality. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the best part. I mean, you're playing what? You're playing video games. Next thing you know, it's 8 hours later and it only felt
Hmm.
like 20 minutes. You're like, where'd my day go?
Yep.
But some of those are the best moments. Like I talk about, like I'll go into Walmart, I'll see a dude wearing a Minecraft t-shirt, buying a 48 can pack thing of Mountain Dew, buying 4 bags of Doritos. And in most people's heads, they're gonna be like, that guy's a sad individual. In my head,
Yeah.
I'm like, that guy's gonna have a great fucking night.
He's going on vacation.
He's going places.
Yeah.
He might probably not leaving the house, but he's going places. He's going to be
Yeah.
prestige level 4 at the end of the night. He's going to be, gaming out all night. It's going to be awesome. And I always say, like, when I started to see Xbox as an unhealthy relationship was when I started getting really, really upset, like basically investing emotional time into the
Yes.
Xbox. And then that's when my parents started like, oh, you got to take it away. You got to take it away. And I see it happen now, but it's very innovative for you as a dad
Hmm.
just to be able to play video games and kind of relate that to your kids. Cause sadly nowadays, that's what you have to do as a parent to even get the kid to pay attention now.
Yeah. I You've got to have some kind of balance when it comes to playing games. I mean, my parents kind of helped me see, hey, you got to take a break from doing this. Not to say that there are weekends where I have sat and just binged on a game or something, but it's I believe having a good balance and showing your child, hey, this is a time we can play. Let's play some games together. Let's enjoy this. Let's go explore Mushroom Kingdom in Mario, or let's go explore Hyrule, or let's just sit down for an hour, we'll play some games and hang out, and then move on to something else. It's still something, I don't know, that I cherish as a parent.
I think it's hard to kind of keep that, like, especially when you're like for me, I was kind of at the start of the video game era, Xbox, PlayStation, those types of things coming out, Nintendo 64. My parents really never had video games in their life.
Hmm.
So it was hard for them to see the fun out of it. They were like, they never played it before, so they're not going to play it now. Like it was difficult for them to see where I was finding so much fun with it. But
Hmm.
when Xbox was coming out, when PlayStation was coming out, and you were getting Xbox Live and all these types of
Yeah.
things, you connected with people that you never even would
Yeah.
thought you would meet. I mean, one of my buddies on my first episode of my second season of my podcast, he's in Wisconsin. We've
Hmm.
been friends, best friends for 8 years. I'm going to his wedding coming up. So it's
Oh.
like I've never met him in my entire life. I've only seen Snapchats, Facebook, Instagram, all these types of things, but he's been one of the coolest people in my entire life. We've always just chatted. It's like that connectivity that you get, whether it's
Yeah.
like a bondage over something, but it shows the coolest part about video games. And people always look at the bad stuff about it. Like video games are going to make you violent. Video games are going to make you this. I believe technology is a bastard. It
Hmm.
is whatever we choose to take out of it, though. We can choose to let it hold us down and control our whole entire lives, or we can do it in moderation to the point where it's a sense of relaxation.
Yeah.
You said it. Well, you said it best yourself. You feel like more people are becoming nerds nowadays. That's true. You know what they sell in stores as a popular T-shirt now? Superhero
Oh
shirts.
yeah. Yeah.
Back in the day, if you were a giant fan wearing Captain America T-shirts, you were picked on. You were like
Hmm.
chased around the yard with a stick of poop.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't what it is now. Now you're seeing people, like older people that you wouldn't even think would be wearing like any type of superhero or geekish clothing, and next thing you know, that's what they're wearing.
I mean, what are the biggest TV shows and movies now?
Big Bang Theory.
Well, yeah, exactly that. The Marvel Cinematic Universe films. You've got all the Marvel TV shows. Star Wars is huge right now, and I mean, I don't see any of those franchises going anywhere, like leaving us anytime soon. I feel like they keep going, and then I feel like people are going to build inspiration off that and come up with their own ideas and give us more superhero, give us more sci-fi, give us more fantasy based literature, entertainment, whatever you have.
I think it's nowadays it's because of the fact that we let technology become such an influence into our lives where we just choose to feel comfortable behind a screen. So nowadays when you go out, you don't even care what you look like really anymore.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just like, screw it, I'm gonna wear a superhero t-shirt because I'm only gonna be out here 5 minutes and I'm back in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. You should come to some of the Walmarts around here.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's why I go to the store at 2:00 in the morning because I can just wear sweatpants and not truly give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wear my house slippers, some sweatpants, my tank, and just go out for a little bit.
So, tell me, what are some of the types of stuff you do with your child that you try and incorporate, like funner things to do, whether it's just playing video games or anything that can make you relate in a way?
All right. So good question. Video games is one. She's picked up on Mario. I'm proud to say that one of her first words was Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
You don't need to explain that one to me. I actually own a Dragon Ball Z T-shirt, and I actually know what the symbol means on the back.
Yeah. Okay, the silence threw me off for a second there, but yeah. So I got a video of her saying that, and then outside of that, she really she's gotten into Spider-Man lately, but I don't try to I don't force anything on her. So I try to let her to discover stuff on herself. So right now she's really into Trolls and she's really into Peppa Pig. I could care less about that stuff. I have no interest in that. But because of the fact that she has interest in it, I feel like it's my responsibility to take interest in that.
That's what a lot of people are doing now with the new Star Wars movies that are coming back.
Mm-hmm.
They're finding out that they're liking it because when they take their kid to go see it, that their kid decides to go back to the original episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my best moments were watching Star Wars, like, the trilogy and stuff with my dad, like something I never even knew about, like, who's Obi-Wan Kenobi? And my dad's like, oh my God, what did I do?
Let's go. Yeah. Let's go back in time.
It's like those, like, we used to, back in the day, used to go actually out to eat and you used to sit and connect with your family nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you're seeing a kid on a tablet playing in front, like when he's supposed to be enjoying the moment. That upsets me on the concept of people let their kid play it at extremely loud volumes when other people are trying to actually engage in conversation.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing is, like, you go out to dinner nowadays and not just the kid, it seems like everybody's on their phone or their tablet.
Yeah, like you're having a date with someone from Tinder and you're on Tinder as you're on the date, still swiping at other people.
So, I mean, for me, it's all about living in that moment with my kids. So if she picks up on something, I feel like it's my responsibility to at least try to find some kind of interest and try to live through that moment with her. That way we might be able to connect in a memory that we wouldn't have had because I was being a lazy father and not caring and just letting her do her own thing.
Well, I think it's the fact is we're so consumed, not just you, not just me, it's everyone in the world. We're so consumed with our own problems that we don't have time for anybody else anymore. I mean, it's difficult nowadays when you can easily just shove a tablet in a kid's face and get away, bring out the temper tantrum. Like, it's all they have to do. Oh, they're having a temper tantrum, just give them the tablet. They'll play Minecraft or something. It's like, whoa, I experienced this on Christmas Eve. It was weird. There was a ping pong table set up, and there was these people that were like in their 50s playing ping pong, and then in their 40s playing ping pong. And then I look over on the couch, and there's like 12 like kids all around the ages of 13, 14, 15. They're all playing Fortnite
on their phone.
They're playing Fortnite, and I'm like, and the TV is like right next to the ping pong table. So it was funny because I remember when my dad used to do this to me. The guy backed up to hit a serve, and all the kids started screaming at him for getting in front of the TV. And he's like, "What? I'm in the way! I'm in the way! I'm in the way!" And he's like, they're telling him, screaming like at him, like, "Get out of the way!" And he's just going back and forth in front of the TV as like a joke. And I realized, like, what was awesome about me was the fact that I went over to the ping pong table and started playing with the adults, and I
Yeah.
realized like this is the stuff you're going to remember when I hit a
Yeah.
serve and then Uncle Jim screams "fuck."
Hmm.
When he misses the ping pong ball and goes right into the drum set. Like it was those types of moments that I find the funniest. I'm like, it's crazy nowadays. You're hearing that they're going to add video games into the Olympics. Like
Yeah. Yes.
it's all under the concept. Like I love video games. I find them awesome. I mean, hell, I stopped playing for a while. Basically after I was so addicted through school. But some of my best moments, like you're at a buddy's house at 2 o'clock in the morning, and your
Hmm.
dad or mom gave you $20 for the weekend, and you spend it on a pizza or a bunch of Mountain Dew and stuff, and you're just playing Halo 3 all night
Hmm.
long. Like those are some of my favorite moments. But
Yeah.
also some of my favorite moments were, you know, taking a step back after not playing it for so long. I barely play video games as it is now. I actually
Hmm.
just recently got addicted into World of Warcraft again.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So I went from level 24 to 94 in a matter of like a week. And I realized like this is a problem. All I'm doing
Yeah.
is, but it's like, everything's cool in moderation. And it's cool to slip back into those gaming moments. I'm like, what else is there going to be able for you to do when it's raining outside? It's a really crappy day and you do not feel like going
Yeah.
anywhere.
And I feel like there's a part of you that kind of lives for that nostalgia too, because you said playing Halo 3 when you were a teenager. I mean, those were some feel good moments in your life, and those are probably moments that you want to feel again on those rainy days. And video games can take you there sometimes um, on rainy days. But like I said, it's all got to be moderated. It's all got to be a balance somewhat.
What are some of the best video games you find that you kind of connect with the most?
Like personally or with people.
Let's say both. So let's say one with you personally, and then let's say what you like to do with people.
All right. So, me personally, open world RPGs. Most recently, Zelda Breath of the Wild,
Never
which
played it.
um, very much like I hate comparing it to this because I've got friends that'll scold me for saying this, but it is like Oblivion or Breath of the Wild, or not Breath of the Wild, Skyrim.
Oh, okay.
So it's open world. You can upgrade your weapons. You can get different abilities and stuff. There isn't really a class play like the Elder Scrolls games have, but it's like you go to this town, get these quests, go to the next town, get these quests, and then while you're doing all these side quests and stuff, you're also uh, going through your main story. And there's so much to do. And it's such a huge open world, and there's so many secret caves and monsters to fight and stuff. And I really got lost in that game when I first got my Switch.
I feel like like what really kind of creates the fantasy aspect of things is character creation games are probably some of my favorites on the
Mhm,
concept of they let you build and customize and add so many things to kind of make it your own
mhm,
invention in a way. I really don't like a game that just does nothing but give you like things you have to do the whole time. I
mhm.
like kind of exploring off and doing my own thing and kind of working on my own thing. Like
Yep.
whether it's like if you can bring up to the example of World of Warcraft, like if you just want to go fishing, spend 4 hours just fishing, just doing nothing. Like, why am I doing this? It just, you can do it though.
Yeah.
And with character creations, it's the coolest. Like what got me really fascinated was into the Oblivion series was the fact that, or the Elder Scroll series, is the fact that you get to learn about the mystical arts that actually is in our history, like mysticism, conjuration, all these types of things that are labeled as witchcraft. Like it helped me look up stuff about the Salem witch trials,
Mhm.
like hearing all that, like all those crazy things that we did. It's like when you find out Christopher Columbus isn't that really good of a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's there's a lot of research that has gone into those games that a lot of people may think is like made up, like the developer and the team made that stuff up, but there's a lot of stuff that plays off of our world that they've incorporated into their world.
Yeah, like the whole history behind the Assassin's Creed series was the fact they went behind and looked up the actual lore and historical facts of the buildings and things of this sort to incorporate into the game. So you're not only just living a kind of alternate reality or
Mhm.
alternate version of history, you're also learning about these actual legitimate buildings and these actual paintings and types of things. They just create more of a mysterious aspect to it, like an occult type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that is just the incredible thing where games have come to nowadays. Like we are getting just AAA, like incredible stories, incredible experiences that I don't think could be given in any other form of entertainment.
Well, you're not getting it when you go to Starbucks and you order a
No,
double pump frappuccino.
no,
You're just
that is for sure.
And then you're the guy that pulls out the Bluetooth and starts shouting in line over a
Yeah,
cell phone conversation. Like, why are you calling me? I'm not a homeowner. I don't own a
yeah.
home. What are you talking about? I don't need insurance. It's like, sir, you're in public. What happened?
Yeah.
Did the mom not turn off the tablet when you were at lunch or dinner?
I've seen that quite a few times.
It's
Here.
it's crazy because I always like I try and do my best, like even though like people always consider the fact, oh, you're just a millennial. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that's not how I choose to act. I guess what your
Yeah.
stereotypical millennial is. I
Yeah.
shut my phone off when I go into the grocery store. On the
Hmm.
concept of I don't need that little bastard letting me know every notification I get when I'm in the store. I'm in the store for a reason. I'm gonna go in here to shop. Nowadays you see everybody just on their phone and that trip turns into an extra 2 hours when you can't get off Instagram or Snapchat.
Hmm.
I find that we do need to make a disconnect when it comes to the types of social media outlets. I find it a huge benefit that for my childhood, I could have sat down and played Guitar Hero or something, and that's a really good game when it comes to the concept of not a lot of people are musically talented.
Right.
Not a lot of people can perform hitting a certain note or a fret on a guitar or make a beat from a drum when they can do it in a video game and still feel the famous aspect of what it means to have fans, what it means to produce a good song, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, I don't know. The Guitar Hero definitely it did good in making you feel like a rock star. Even though like you could shred on expert and then you actually go to real guitar and then you're like, this is way different.
Yeah, I've met people that can literally beat the game on expert. Like Devil Went Down to Georgia on expert is probably one of the hardest songs in the freaking world. It's like trying to
Oh yeah.
interpret what the meaning of life is. And my brother is a good guitar player, but when he plays Guitar Hero, he's good, but he's not like expert level, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He plays actual guitar and he's actually really, really good at it.
Yeah.
And he just grabs and he goes, "This is freaking
Uh,
ridiculous." And I'm like,
yeah.
"What?" It's like when they made Rocksmith and they tried to make it as real as possible. A bunch of people were like, "I'd rather play Guitar Hero." I'm like, "Cause it actually tries to make you learn how to play the
Yep.
guitar."
Yeah. Yeah. That's brutal.
And also, like when you play like GTA, like just because I run over a couple strippers and kill a couple people does not mean I'm going to do that in my everyday life. Okay.
Yeah. There's definitely been a linking between video game violence and real life violence
Well, I think
lately.
it's like when they bring up the fact that violent video games turn someone violent and makes them shoot up a store, I say that that's intent is already inside of that person
Yeah.
because I can tell you right now, I'm not killing a bunch of people on Call of Duty and immediately wanting to go shoot up a store. I think what that comes to the fact is we're being very disconnected as people nowadays. It's very easy to write a tweet. It's very easy to, say something online when there's no ramifications behind it. There's no person like I think Jay and Silent Bob, the movie, they did it best in Strikes Back when they go and find everybody that was talking shit on them and they just go and start beating the crap out of them.
Mhm.
Like that's the best aspect. If you said something online and you had that threat of that person actually coming to your house and doing something, I guarantee you probably wouldn't call that person a whore.
Yeah. Yeah. People believe they are bigger online than they really are in real life.
Do you think that's a problem that's only going to get worse, or do you think more people with the sensitivity that's going on is gonna enlighten it a little bit?
As far as internet bullying or like video game violence being,
I guess internet bullying.
um, I think we're always gonna have that, and I think it honestly, I feel like it's gonna get worse, and just people just don't really care.
I think I
People
think
don't care for other people's feelings, especially when it comes to the internet.
Yeah,
Just
because it's so easy. Like, journalism nowadays is now bloggers, like
oh
website
yeah,
bloggers are
yeah,
now journalistic people. You know what happened when you used to create a bad article and it got posted into the newspaper and you were lying in your article? You lost your job, you
yeah.
lost your credit. You know what happens if you create a bad article on the internet? Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing, not a damn thing. I can look up right now saying Donald Trump is from outer space and he rides a magical unicorn, and I guarantee you 50 million people are going to love it. And
Yeah.
I have no ramifications for being wrong or absurd in what I said.
No, because honestly, that would probably be the best article ever.
Probably. I mean, Nyan Cat was pretty huge. Let's see how big we can get
Yeah.
Donald Trump riding on a rainbow. There are pictures on the internet of people riding a shark while they're shooting a 50 mg machine gun and riding a giant tsunami. Like,
I mean, that's cool though. Like,
yeah, there's also a painting of President JFK on top of a bear with a Uzi, freaking holding an American flag with an eagle on his shoulder. I saw that. I was like, this is what the best aspect of the internet is.
yeah, yeah, that is the better side of the internet.
Do you
But
think?
yeah, the internet is so like, I don't know, it's so good and yet it is so bad.
Well, people have to realize, like older generations have to realize that you can't, the way that they grew up is completely different from how kids are growing up now. I
Yeah,
mean, kids don't know now what it was like to grow up without a phone. I was 14 when I finally got my first phone, and it was one of those ones where you actually, when you were texting, it took 10 minutes to
oh yeah,
send like a sentence.
you had to hit the same button 3 times in order to get to whatever letter you wanted.
And it was like different because like nowadays people send paragraphs upon paragraphs upon paragraphs in a matter of a minute. Back in the day, if you sent a paragraph, you knew you had to read that paragraph because that person fucking meant it.
Hmm.
Like they sat there typing it out 3 times to even get the buttons and the letters
Yep.
to press together. And then don't even get me wrong, if you made an error, there was no autocorrect. You had to go
Yep.
back and fix that thing.
Let me tell you, like, if I ever get an extremely long text message that is not, from my wife, I feel like I need to pop a Xanax because I don't know. There's just something about communicating through texting, like emotionally communicating through texting, that just stresses me out. And like, it's just
There's no emotional communication being
exactly, yeah, exactly. But people are trying to convey their emotions through texting, and it's just,
it
oh,
doesn't
it drives
work.
me nuts.
You know how many times I get a misinterpreted text from
Yeah,
someone voice texting?
yeah,
They'll be like, "Can you go to the store, please, and pick this up?" And then it hits send, and then it
yeah,
says, "Go to store, pick this up." And then immediately I'm like, "Are you telling me what to
yeah.
do right now?" Like,
With an exclamation point.
yeah, it's like the phone cannot. I try and highlight this to people because people don't understand that your phone cannot pick up emotion.
Hmm.
It doesn't. That's why Siri sounds like she's automated as hell. Like
Yeah,
when Siri starts talking to you, you're like, "Okay, Siri, shut up, please."
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry. Did you just tell me to shut up?
yeah.
Like, I would
I'm,
love it if Siri had like a backbone to her. Like, who are you telling to shut up?
yeah.
I'm like, ho, 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 ho.
Mind your manners.
I remember I had a GPS and you used to be able to set the voice to whatever you wanted it to be.
Hmm.
And we set it to Cartman from South Park.
Oh, really?
And whenever you missed a turn, he was like, "Hey, nice job, dumbass." And like, he'd say something like that. Like, it was just so perfect. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I wish technology was real like that. Like if you told Alexa to shut up, she was like, "How about you shut up?" It's like,
yeah.
oh shit.
Come back. I'm a firm believer that's social media and texting is going to be the death of verbal communication within our generation.
What do you mean?
So I feel like, how old are you?
I'm 21.
Okay. So we're not too far apart. Well, almost, I guess we're almost 10 years apart. But I feel like kids that grew up in the age of when texting became popular, I feel like they are able to express themselves better through texting or posting on Facebook or stuff than they are to expressing themselves in verbal words.
That is true. I feel like because it's much easier to say something through a phone or a screen than it is to actually say it. mostly on the concept of like, back in the day when Facebook first started, that was a thing where people just sat there and bitched about their problems. It
Yeah.
was then now it's evolved into like people looking into recommendations, and now at the point it is in today's society, it's literally nothing but memes about depression,
Yeah.
and you like it because you understand it and you laugh at it and you're like, that's funny, and you don't realize you're dealing with that right now.
Yeah. And everybody went to their therapist Tom on Facebook.
It's crazy because the fact that we have people don't look into the fact you have a digital footprint,
Mm-hmm.
like a digital footprint, meaning that whatever you say is held up there.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
did you see Dave Chappelle's new special?
Uh-uh.
Okay. He talks about how Kevin Hart almost lost his opportunity to host the Grammys
Mm-hmm.
on the concept of he wrote a tweet 10 years ago where it was just a joke, but it was in tweet form.
Right.
And it was the concept of like, if my kid was gay, I was going to smash him upside the head with a dollhouse.
Mm.
That's in a joking way, but someone found that tweet from 10 years ago and they used it to almost not let him get into hosting the Grammys.
Well, yeah, that just goes back to the fact that anything you put on the internet is forever there.
Not even that. When you document something, like if you're in a courtroom and you're like, let's like Bill Burr has a joke. He goes, imagine you're talking dirty to your wife or something, and
Mm-hmm.
you're in the middle of like, she goes, I want you to. He goes, I'm gonna. You just go, I'm gonna grab your head and I'm gonna slam it up against, and like a bunch of dirty talk.
Right.
Now that gets used in a court case in a sexual allegation. You know how the dude's reading it. I'm going to grab your head and punch it up
And
against the wall.
it turns into something violent.
And you're like, that's not what I said. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I said, but not in that manner because
Yeah.
the guy's reading it and it's like it's coming from words. Like when you read an article about something a comedian said or something, you're like, wow, he said that. And then you don't even understand the joking humor or the tone that it was actually in, where if you listen to it, you're like, oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Do you think that, like, with the way technology is going, do you think we're going to become more reliant where it ends up being like Wall-E, where we're all
Oh yeah.
kind of-
For some reason, I always go back to thinking about that. Like I feel like if we're continuing down the path that we are now, we could eventually get to that point.
I think it's the point, like, we don't know what it's like to be afraid of things anymore. We don't know
Yeah.
what it's like to do things for ourselves because technology's made it so damn easy.
Yep. Yep. And eventually, I'll probably be out of my job as a tech, and they'll just have robots doing everything.
That's what it's like. Like you're seeing that everywhere now. Like going
Yeah.
to like a gas station, you don't even need to talk to anybody. There used to be a guy that used to pump your gas for you.
Yeah.
And then he would ask you if you needed anything else. And then also when you go into a restaurant, like everything's becoming self-serve.
Well, I mean, you've got things that besides the waiters. I mean, you can cash out at the table through a little tablet without having to say, "Hey, I'm ready to go" or anything. Just do it and go. I mean,
People-
eventually there will be waiters, or they'll have, serving tubes or something where the food will just be sent to your table. And I don't know. It's just I feel like we could eventually get to that point.
Hey, I'm at fault for doing it too. The whole concept of when I go to the grocery store, I'm going to self-checkout.
Yeah.
Because the only times I ever go and actually check out when I want to actually have communication with someone, I go, hey, how's your day going? And they go, don't let me tell you about my day. Let me tell you. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's because we don't communicate anymore. I mean, you walk in your house, you don't talk to your family really, and you just go and do your own thing. It's like we're so out of touch of what people's lives are. It's why when we post something on social media, such as like my day was crap, this didn't happen, and
Yeah.
a like and an acceptance, it's that pat on the back, like someone letting you know they're listening.
Yeah.
But it's not real communication.
No. Yeah. I try really hard not to like post emotional feelings on Facebook or Twitter. I mean, sometimes I will post something, but I don't know. I feel like you need to go to a close friend or someone that you can just sit down and talk with if you've got a vent about something.
Yeah, the rational fact that you go to your therapist and just sit there complaining about your day and not wanting any advice. You're just going to sit there because you're looking for someone to talk to.
Yeah.
It's hard because usually when you go and say something to somebody, it feels like they're half listening, and then they give you their load of crap, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I wasn't ready for that, and then you walk away when they start. It's like, hold on a second, you just let me listen to your crap for 30 minutes. Now you're not going to let me say what I have to say and get off what my chest is. It's because as soon as we get something for ourselves, we just walk away like, oh, we're done. We don't need
Yeah.
to help out anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
I couldn't agree with you more.
we had back in the day, you used to have to send a letter by fucking bird.
Mm-hmm.
Now you send a text and don't even think where or when or how or where it's going at all.
And you don't even double check it to make sure what you said was right.
You used to have to get a guy to carry a message on a horse. It would take 2 weeks. Then that message would finally hit you. Wait,
Mm-hmm.
grandma died and her funeral's today? Well, it's it's
Too late.
Yeah, it's too late. It's 2 weeks away. I can't get there.
Yeah.
It's crazy when that message doesn't come. Like the guy ended up dying along the way,
Yeah.
and then you're sitting there thinking, still sending messages to your grandma, and they're like,
Yeah.
you don't understand. That person died already, like a couple of years ago. What? Grandma's dead?
Yeah. It's it's crazy. I feel like we'll get to a point in time where we'll just have chips that are connected to our brain, and we can just neurologically like just send stuff to each other without even having to look at a screen.
Bro, that's actually a thing.
Is it?
It's called the gene chip, and it goes
Uh-huh.
into the back of your head, and it basically gives you like the internet on the back of your brain. And me and my buddy actually got into a podcast about this, and we were arguing because my buddy's 100% for technology. I brought up this fact. I think technology is awesome. I really do. But I know people, and I know where people are going to take that gene chip. You're not going to be looking up Google and looking up all the vast information that the internet has to offer in the best way. You're going to be looking up porn in the middle of class where you're completely off track and not paying attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I didn't realize that was an actual thing now, but it's just it's crazy. Eventually we'll become like cyborgs. Eventually, like it's just gonna get to this whole nother like a whole step above where we're at now. I don't know.
I like we say it's because of technology, but honestly, throughout history, there's been people that have been a little bit off the edge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman back in like 1994, I want to say. She got her eyes legally blind. They got a chemical that dumped it right into her eyes, so she'll lose her sight. It just burned off all the retinas.
Mm-hmm.
And she did that because she wanted a sense of realist in the world. Whether that's a deep meaning for doing that act. And I'm like,
That's crazy.
you're lucky to have sight. Like,
Yeah.
it's you hear that about people, and I'm like, that's when there's going to be people nowadays. You're going to hear a kid that got his leg taken off so he can have a bionic leg.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
what my buddy's for. He's like, dude, if they could give me a metal heart, I would take it. I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
They could turn me into Wolverine and let me have claws come out of my fist and
he's like, dude, you know what it would be like if you could just have an extendo arm? And I'm like, dude,
yeah.
you just don't want to be you, or you're
No.
just too lazy to get up and flick the, like my buddy, his house is all Alexa'd up. I mean,
Yeah.
Alexa greets you at the front door. Alexa flushes the toilet for you if you want. I don't like that. Okay. I still like to be able to get up and flick the light switch. I still like being able to wipe my own ass. If a robot starts doing that for me, I don't know if I want to be on this planet anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess people do take for granted. Although an extendo arm does sound kind of cool, but I would want to use it for the fact of like pranking people.
Like, what types of pranks would you do with an extendo arm?
I don't know, like trip a friend of mine. My daughter's pushing my chair out of my room. Like stop her from pushing my chair out of my room.
Yeah, it's just put her to bed from an extendo arm.
Please go to sleep. Go to sleep, kiddo. No, I don't know. I mean, I guess your imagination takes you to places where you could, do things that you normally couldn't do. But then I feel like once you are put in that position, you would just want to go back to where you are now.
It showed the whole aspect of the movie we're totally glossing over. Inspector Gadget.
Yes, exactly. I mean, who wouldn't want to have like a hat, or I don't know if it's head that turns into a helicopter and can fly away.
And you saw it, like he was like crying at like towards like the end of the movie. Like he realized it was a cool having all those gifts, but it wasn't him really. You know,
Right.
like you saw in the beginning, the first time he's like, go gadget arm, go gadget, and like all these things are happening. And next thing you know, he sets his bathroom on fire. Like he has a toothbrush that comes out of his finger. Like there's this type of stuff. That's where we're gonna end up taking it. It's not gonna go into the benefit like where people can like easily you know, you know, should just like fix what a problem in their life. Like it's say, you don't have sight. So you get eye implementations. That's
Right.
a benefit. But the way we're taking it is like, I want Alexa to wipe my ass for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess it would be nice to have, someone to wipe your butt, take care of it, but you know,
You're not a child anymore. You have to kind of grow up into the real world.
yeah. Yeah. We
Well,
got to learn responsibilities and be adults and do adult things.
Well, hey Kyle, I appreciate you doing the podcast, man.
Yeah,
It was
man.
cool. I know you got kids all in the background. Sounds
Yeah.
like they want to spend some time. They want to play some Mario for sure.
We might do that. She's been up all day, so she might be ready for bed. I don't know. We'll see whenever I hop off here. But hey, I want to thank you for inviting me on here. This has been a blast, man. You've got such a great laid back show, and I appreciate the open conversation. I don't want to mean this in like this isn't insulting anyway, but informal conversation. Like it's just been so chill and laid back, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate you saying that, man, because I get what you're saying. Just it's more of a relaxed vibe where you can kind
Yeah,
of just go off on whatever. You don't have to feel like you have to conform to anybody's views, I guess.
exactly. Keep doing it. I like this a lot.
And I want to give you here a minute at the end to be able to plug your podcast where people
Sure.
can find your awesome stuff.
Sure. Now?
Yeah, man.
Okay. So, like I said, I do 2 different podcasts. Parent Quest, which we talked about, you can find on Twitter at Parent Quest Pod. I am on Anchor and probably most of your podcasting networks. All you got to do is type in Parent Quest and you'll find it. Icon is a dude holding a controller with a daughter looking up to him. And then the other one that I do is Real Dudes Podcast, and we focus on indie video games and independent companies that develop these video games, which you can also find on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. That one on Twitter is at @realdudes_pod, and we've been doing that one for about 3 years now, which is kind of mine and my buddy's baby.
Well, man, it's been awesome talking to you, Kyle, and I hope
Yeah,
you have a wonderful night, man.
Robbie, thank you very much.